Welcome to True and Unpolished. Through this podcast, our intention is to uplift, amuse, and inspire you to create more of a life you'll love. Let's get authentic, everybody. So have you ever had one of those days, one of those weeks, I don't know, maybe one of those months or years where you just want to quit life? Like you have figured out that you, in fact, are not able to handle the day-to-day, the dishes, work, kids, and also, make sure there's bread. That is the kind of week I had last week. And last Wednesday night, I looked at my husband and I said, I quit. I just quit it all. Thankfully, I just needed to vent. And thankfully, he knew that. But on top of a myriad of things that I had to do, the internet, everybody, kept coming on and then cutting off intermittently for 5 days with seemingly no rhyme or reason. And after a trip to the cable store and getting new equipment and then setting it up, and then after 6 cable people, I almost said cable man, but I'm not doing that. Cable people tried to fix my problem. Finally, on the 6th try, on the 5th day at 5 p.m., I was able to have internet again. I have to say, it was super frustrating. I think it wouldn't have been frustrating had it been just like off the whole time. But this random, like, come on and go off. And then I would think, oh, is it because we have, 4 things going on the Wi-Fi? Or is it because I, scratched my nose? I don't know. But I started to kind of obsess about what I might or might not be doing to make this happen. And I came to realize that it was the universe's way of helping me to pause, to slow down. And mostly great things came of that. One sad thing, but I believe on purpose thing, because I think everything is on purpose, is that I did not get to take part in this amazing conversation that Mary had with Dr. Rhea Merck and Dr. Amy Montanez. They have just finished their second book, and I believe the first one came out last year, but the second book is called Love, A Guide to Life Partnering. Together, these amazing women, Amy and Rhea, have come up with messymarvelous.com. They've got a great blog on there, and they are psychotherapists who really give an amazing insight into really everything. Their first book was Launch, A Guide to Adulting. And I haven't read it yet, but I promise you, as soon as I finish this recording, I will be ordering it. And so today, in what you're about to hear, Mary and Amy and Rhea have a wonderful conversation on relationships of all kinds and showing up in those from your highest self, your best self. And so together, remember I wasn't there, let's take a listen.
So Rhea, you were going to start us off by telling the story of how y'all met.
Oh, well, yes, thank you. Not probably how we met. We probably couldn't even date that. It's been so long now. It's well over 30 years. But in the process of that, with both of us being therapists, we were oftentimes talking about what we do and the messages that we have for people, and just really kind of wanting to reach a bigger audience. So again, we can't date this either exactly. It was probably somewhere between 2012 maybe and 2014 we were on what we recall as being a girlfriend's trip up to the mountains.
Yeah.
And just doing the usual things, talking, hiking, shopping. And so we were in Asheville in Mass General Store. And walked up. I was looking at the Life is Good display. You know, they've got everything, cups, t-shirts, everything. It's a great little company. And I just love their little designs and their and puns. And so Amy walks up and looks at it and was just like, this isn't it. This isn't the whole thing. I'll let you take it from there, Amy.
Yeah, what I remember is looking at this entire wall, brick wall, floor to ceiling wall of Life is Good t-shirts. And I love this company, FYI. It's a cool company. They have a great history, a great story. But I'm looking at this wall of Life is Good stuff. And I just remember being overwhelmed with that the paradox is so much bigger than that, and that life is good, but it also is horrible sometimes, and it sucks sometimes. And so we walked out of the store with me and my very, kind of intense emotional place of, oh my God, Ray, that is only half of the story. Like, life is so hard and it's so, difficult. And we hadn't gotten to the words messy, marvelous yet. We were just processing this paradox and how do we get that word out to people. So fast forward maybe a month.
Who knows? Yeah.
Who knows? Right. So I show up in Ray's kitchen on a Saturday morning with my coffee cup.
Right.
Have a cup of coffee, and I'll let you take it from there, Ray.
I was a couple of years out from a divorce of a long-term marriage, and in the dating world.
Yes.
It was, to call it disastrous would be kind, probably.
What, the dating part or the divorce or all of it?
No, the dating part.
Yes.
I dated since I was 20 and I was in my late 40s. And so I just said to Amy, I was like, it is just such a mess. I feel like this is all so messy right now.
Yeah.
And that's where sort of the light bulb started going off. And we started again with that idea of the paradox, and that life is messy and life is marvelous, because in the big scheme, I didn't have anything to complain about in my life. The rest of my life was great,
Right.
So that's kind of where we got started. And we brainstormed a lot for a while about what to write. We originally thought about writing a book.
Yeah.
And that seemed just a bit daunting at best. And so we decided on a blog. Amy had been writing blogs for a while.
Yeah, well, I've been writing blogs, and I already had a book published. And,
that book is called Moment to Moment, right? It's called Mindfulness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you. It's on the transformative power of everyday life. We also, so in the beginning, our logo or our thing was LIM, life is messy and marvelous. So it was LIM squared. That was our first trademark, which we thought was so catchy and cute, sexy.
Like it's an equation, right?
Yeah, and that's what we said. It was an equation for daily life, and that totally fell flat. We spent a lot of money on
Nobody got it.
Nobody got it. People would look at it and go,
"Lime too,
lime too, limb too." It was terrible. So we had to regroup, and we just went to Messy Marvelous. But we had, fantasies at the time of, t-shirts and hats, life is
right.
Life is good, but messy, marvelous. And then we realized that was way beyond anything we could pull off, both of us working full-time jobs and all of that.
Well, I know it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
I mean,
so, and then it's storage problems, and it's this problem, that. So anyway, we just decided on a blog, and we wrote very faithfully for 3 years, I think, every single week. We had a blog out every single week the first 3 years. Yeah. And then we took a break, and then we wrote again more in like series, like we do a series on the holidays, or a series on relationships, or a series on stress or something. And then we started getting this, people were asking us constantly to write a book. I mean, that was a
Right.
constant thing.
Well, there was that, and people were like, what is your target audience?
Right.
And we kept saying, well, everyone is our audience, because the blog every week had a skill for managing your messy life, basically.
Yeah.
How we put it. And I got to the end of an academic year and had some students and some kids of friends that I thought, I want to get them a little graduation gift. So I started looking at books, and there was really nothing out there. I wanted something simple, succinct, where they didn't have to sit down and take on a big project. And that's how we started thinking about our first book, which was
Right.
Adulting, or no, it's called Launch, A Guide to Adulting. And it's 11 skills, and it's structured the same as this second book, where there's reflection pages and resources and discussion questions that you can either use by yourself as a reflection or in conjunction with someone else. And
well, I've been going through it with my partner, David, and he and I are really enjoying it. And the book Love just came out. And so he and I are, like a third of the way through. But what we found is that we sitting down and reading it together, and then answering the questions together. We haven't gotten to the point of really looking at any of the resources yet, but it's a very dense kind of bit of information. But it's also, as David said, I think this is, he gave y'all a good review.
Yeah.
He said it's educational, disarming, and approachable without being patronizing or too sappy. So he thought,
that's good. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Well, he had
that
more
on
to
Amazon.
say about it. What's that?
I hope he's going to put that on Amazon for us.
Well, I'll ask him to.
Yeah.
So
well, it's structured a lot like our blogs. And so the way that we've tackled that, I do believe, is in a real personal way. So we tell personal stories because we're not above these messes. That's the whole point.
Right.
And, but the difference, I think what does make a difference is through our work, we have this skill set that the average person probably doesn't have unless they've been really intentional about finding it. So Amy one time said, I can't not know what I know. And so I think it really is something that we have tried and practiced and perhaps even failed at over the years, but we can't not know what we know.
Well, and it's also based on a ton of research.
Yes.
Every skill that is in here, and if you start looking at the resources, you find that, but every skill that is in here are skills that have been researched by relationship scientists and psychologists about what is necessary for a vital, healthy, long-term relationship. And so we know this. It's not like we're shooting darts.
We just pulled it out of our hat.
Yeah, the science has been around for a long time about what makes for relationships that last. And so everything that's in the book, and we do work very hard to make all of this personal. I believe in that as a human being, that we accompany each other in our messes, right? And in our marvelousnesses.
Yeah.
So, we do make it very personal, but the reality is this stuff is researched and it matters and it makes a difference in people's lives.
Well, so my background is DBT, which is, as y'all know, it's dialectical behavior therapy, and it's all skills based too. And what I've done is kind of combine what I know and learn from DBT, and along with the spiritual stuff that I read.
Yes.
And I think after kind of looking at your stuff, there's a lot of parallels, and now sitting here talking with you, and of course Lydia's not with us today, her internet wouldn't cooperate with this, but what I'm kind of wondering about is your friendship. You told the story a little bit, but how that kind of plays into your success, just as human beings. Have y'all talked much about that?
Well, I think we do, and it's always been an ongoing conversation, and we use our skills in our relationship with one another. And, people oftentimes say, don't go into business with a friend. Yeah. But what I feel 100% confident about, and, I hope I'm speaking for Amy, but is that, we value our relationship above anything else. And so what we know is those bumps or the ways that people inevitably step on each other's toes, we have the ability to talk through that. And so, so our friendship does really go back a long time. This isn't the first sort of business venture, if you will, that we've been on. So
yeah, years ago, we did a series over a year, I think maybe a couple of years, called Enlightened Lunches. And I loved that series. So we rented out the back room of the Mio's that was on Main Street. And once a month we met and people made reservations and had their meals. And we had a speaker, or you or I spoke, Ray. We had a theme for the day, and that was a lovely thing. It was a little bit of work, hard to keep up, and I don't even know why we stopped it. It might have been when you went to the university.
I think it's when I went back to the university. Yeah. I just moved and I was cleaning out. I found a little stack of our brochures for that. Yeah.
So I think for a long time, Ray and I have felt like the world of psychology and spirituality, and Mary, I think you know me a little bit, but my real sweet spot, my real home is where psychology and spirituality interface, and I work from that place always, and even if I'm not naming that. Like if I'm working with someone who's open to that being named, then I name it, but I don't have to name it because it's integrated. And so I really believe that getting more of that out into the world, and have been doing this, like Ray said, we've been doing this for years, trying to find ways to do this. So I want to go back to your question about the friendship. I think that of course, Ray talked about we use these skills. Of course we do in our love relationships, but also in our friendship. But I also think that anybody who has one good, Carl Whitaker used to say, Carl Whitaker was the grandfather of family therapy, for those of you who don't know him. Carl Whitaker always said if everybody had one true friend, therapists would be out of business.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's such a profound statement. But Ray's friendship with me, and I am fortunate, and Ray, I know you are fortunate. We have several friends, each of us, that I would call, in that inner circle.
Right.
And I'm so blessed to have that. I also know it's a two-way street. I try to be that kind of a friend. So when you have a friend that you can be vulnerable with and honest with and naked with, and a friend who's not unwilling to hold the mirror up to you as well. And we've had those times, both of us go in both directions. That is deeply spiritual. When someone is reflecting you to you and is taking the time to really listen and get to hear what you are saying.
With presence, showing up with presence for the people in your life, whether it's an intimate relationship or friendship.
Yes. And with the intention of learning more about you and being curious about you and wanting to know you more deeply, rather than what happens so often in marriages or deep relationships, is that somebody loses their curiosity and they start making assumptions and they don't
Judgments.
want to know more about you, or what they're finding out about you is scaring them. And so then they are defensive, or they're, whatever. So
they run away. Right.
They run away. Right. So I certainly think having any deep friendship, is a spiritual charism, right? It is it's a gift. It's a spiritual gift.
Absolutely.
Yes. So I wonder, I mean, since we're kind of talking about this now, and because of your friendship, that's why I'm inspired to talk about, because it is, there's a lot of parallels with Lydia and I's friendship.
Yeah.
And so, and we're kind of doing some similar things. And so what I wonder is how do you have any advice for how to attract those kinds of friendships? Because you said something about, we're very lucky and a lot of people don't have that.
Right. Well, I think, first of all, you have to be willing to be that person first and foremost, just like in a love relationship. If you're looking for someone who has all these qualities, well, rather than looking out there, what am I doing about me to present those qualities in the world? Because to some degree, and it's certainly not scientific, but like attracts like. And so I think it's important to know yourself and be willing to put yourself out there. First of all, we are fortunate, I think, Amy and I, because we work in a field that's sort of the built-in personality characteristic to some degree. And so not all of them by any means, but a number of our friends are therapists or are in similar fields.
Right.
And people understand that, and they're willing to go there. They're willing to have these very deep, spiritually grounded sorts of relationships.
Well, I think too, Mary, in terms of friendship, and I don't know how long you and Lydia have been friends, but it doesn't happen overnight, right?
Right.
This is how trust works across all relationships, is you meet somebody, you try a little bit and you see how that goes. Did that person treat my, what?
Dip a toe in.
Okay, dip a toe in.
Yeah.
Did that person treat my story with respect? I just met somebody new for lunch today, a gentleman that I've been wanting to meet. He's a psychologist, and so you talk a little, you give a little, and you see how that goes. And if that goes well and that feels like it's respected and it's mutual, then you do it again and you develop that again and you try again. And so as you keep trying, that is how trust is developed. This is science. Trust is developed in small moments,
Right.
tiny moments of everyday kinds of exchanges. And so when you want to develop a deep friendship, A, you got to be in for the long haul. And B, you got to know it's going to be little things. And then you're going to make a mistake. Something's going to happen. And then you have to lean in. You have to go like, hey, this relationship means a lot to me and something went wrong. And I want us to work through that. And that's how it happens. I mean, that's
right.
I was thinking when you were talking earlier, Mary, about I was with my sweet mates from Furman, two of whom I am super close to, and the third one I am close to, but I just don't stay as much in touch with. But when we're all together, it's all together.
Yeah.
We were Zooming with a playwright because we were working on writing a play, which we're still kind of having the.
Well, that's a whole nother thing I didn't know about.
And it really could be a great play. But anyway, so the playwright that we were meeting with, her name is Joan. And, she was Zooming with us and we were in our pajamas with our coffee and talking about the play and da-da-da-da-da. And whatever we were doing, I don't know, somebody was reaching for something, kind of on couches. We were kind of like crawling over each other and back, touching each other. And like in the middle of the 2 hours we had with her, she just stopped and she got weepy. And she said, I am so touched watching
Wow.
your friendship.
Mhm.
Like you guys are like an organism that just knows how to move together and knows how to talk together and knows. And then we were all crying. We know we're lucky, but we have worked at it. Every one of those like pairs and then the triangles and then the four of us. I mean, there have been times in all of them where it's been like, oh, this is hard.
Yeah.
Like we have to.
So was the play about your friendship?
No, the play, but maybe it'll end up. The play is actually about our fathers.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a whole nother thing about relationships. Relationships are so challenging. I think, messy, exactly. So
Yeah.
I guess another question I have for you, because my favorite relationships are the ones that I didn't plan or expect, but there's just this soulful connection. And so I'm kind of wondering about that, and what each of you sort of think about that idea, because there's both, there's what you're talking about is very much intentional skills usage, and then also knowing, the soulful connection.
It's the magic and the mystery,
Mhm.
right? That we
Mhm.
don't always understand, of when two souls meet. People believe different things. If you believe in past lives, there might be something about, feeling like you've known this person before, or, maybe in a past life, they were a sister or a daughter or a mother or a cousin or something. So there's kind of that feeling, but I do think souls connect. And
Yeah.
you've probably had the experience of meeting somebody like, I don't know, at a conference or at camp or something, and you wish you had time to develop it because you feel that like, oh my God, we could be friends.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But life and
But it's short and we're busy and
right.
you move on. All right. You move to the next thing or
But,
whatever. But
yeah, I do think
Well,
you're.
so you asked about or mentioned, I don't know how long you and Lydia have been friends. Well, I was 10 the first time I saw Lydia, and she was 4, and she was sitting in a stroller, and our families had known each other and gone to church together when we were that young. And I remember this and she doesn't, but we ran, like, the families ran into each other, and I just knew her in that moment. And then I didn't see her again for probably 15 years. But that next time I saw her is when our friendship really started.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah, wow, that's quite a
That's
story.
an interesting story. Yeah, absolutely. Uh-huh.
Yeah. And she doesn't have that memory, but
Right.
she still feels the same connection. I mean, she's told me. So,
Mhm.
Well, and I think this happens even like, when I hired, my secretary before Karen. I had an interim, but well, Carrie. When I hired Carrie Graves,
yeah.
I,
Well, and Carrie's been on the podcast a couple
yes,
of
I
times.
know,
We're
and
going to have her back soon.
I've listened
And
to those podcasts.
yeah, my relationship with Carrie started very much like that too. But tell us about yours.
Well, I interviewed her for a position as office manager,
Right.
and I knew in the first 20 minutes I was going to hire her. Like I just felt that thing, and she was my office manager and I was her boss, but we had a very mutual relationship, and Carrie was absolutely the person I needed in my life at that time. She got me through the writing of my first book because she was a bookseller.
Right.
And she knew the book world, and it was like God plopped Carrie into my life.
Yes.
I didn't even know I was going to write a book.
Yeah.
And so, but Carrie and I had and still, have a very deep connection.
Mm-hmm.
I adore her, and I feel very close to her. So I don't, I think there's mystery about this stuff that we're just not gonna know until we're on the other side. But it is very special when we have those feelings.
Well, so what about when we've done our own inner work? Is it more likely that we'll have those soulful connections? And what I mean by inner work is paying attention to our unconscious thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that drive us, and owning all of the messy and marvelous parts of ourselves, loving all of those parts, but not hiding from them or pretending like they're not there.
Sure.
So,
right. So, of course, would be my answer, because it clears your vision, it clears your intentions, it clears your motives, it clears your thinking. I mean, that's part of the
Takes away all the, the fancy psychobabble, but it clears the projections.
Right.
And I think most people know what a projection is and what transference is, but it clears that, and not permanently. Nothing clears it permanently. It's a constant. Inner work never stops. It's the work of a lifetime. It's the journey of a lifetime, right? But yes, I think the more you do that, the more you are going to be able to befriend and be befriended.
And the more you can be clear when you run into bumps. I told Amy this story last week. It happened last week, but I have recently moved in with someone for the first time since I got divorced, which was, 12 years ago or more. And so we were negotiating things around the house, and just both pretty stubborn, and
yeah.
So I said to him, I was like, I think you're the most stubborn person next to me. And bear in mind that I have not had to negotiate anything like this with anyone for 12 years,
Right.
So that was me owning my part of this conflict. I could have pointed at him and said, you're a jerk, you want your way, blah, blah, blah. But that would have been not acknowledging that I wanted my way,
Right.
But it might have been more fun to do that.
Well, that's one of the things that I love about your book, because your newest book, is because, Amy, you have the perspective of somebody who's been in a long-term marriage, right. But also, and Ray has that perspective of a long-term marriage too, but she also has the perspective of someone who's been divorced and dated. And so I think, the way that y'all navigate that and show different aspects, I mean, there's a lot of similarities for, a successful long-term marriage and, a marriage that ends in divorce. Not that it means it wasn't successful, and I'm navigating that as someone who also, I was in a 15-year marriage, 20-year relationship. So can you speak to that a little bit about how you offer different perspectives on partnership, intimate relationships?
Well, I'm going to share a comment that someone made to us together that almost took my breath away, because I'll just share what she said. So this person has been divorced, I think twice, has been single a while now, and is maintaining singlehood for the time being anyway. And what she said was that she assumed she would be single the rest of her life, and that she had made peace with that, and that she never thought she could do this again. And then she read our book, and she said, this is the first time that I feel like I have a map that could guide me into a new relationship with some hope. And I literally, my breath was taken away. I was like, whoa, like that's the coolest thing for someone to say, because I don't think you and I had like envisioned it quite that way, Ray. I mean, we've had lots of ideas about it. I was like, wow. So I think to kind of, that was like a sideways answer to your question, Mary, which is, whether you're married for 40, Nick and I just celebrated our 42nd wedding anniversary, and we both say that we're on our fourth marriage now, to each other.
Right. Right. I love that. And that's part of the book.
Yeah. Like we've had to navigate all these different stages and all these different parts of ourselves that have come alive and parts of ourselves that have needed to die off. And so we're in that. But I think no matter where you are, 42 years or dating, it's nice to sort of have a guide.
Yes. And that's really what this is. And one of the things that I'll mention that I really like was the short chapters.
Yeah.
Because it is very dense. I mean, there is a ton of information. And so, having the shorter chapters allows the individual or partnership to digest it,
right,
and really kind of contemplate it, because I think a lot of times we're consuming so much information.
Oh my gosh.
So that really to me was a very helpful way to present it. It's in these short chapters.
That's good feedback for us. We shortened a couple of the chapters even that we thought were too long on too much information, and had to get them down a little bit, which I think was helpful. I think they're all down to manageable sizes. Ray and I got to meet with a small group of mothers and daughters who were actually using the book weekly to do, or every other week to do launch, and one of the things they said was how much they enjoyed just doing a skill at a time. We just have to work on this skill, and that's all.
Right.
On. And I think sometimes in a marriage, Lord, just learning any of these,
One simple thing can sometimes dramatically improve things. Yeah.
Right.
One of the things that I brought to this partnership was having taught the psychology of marriage at USC for 10 years. And in one of my very first semesters, my students would get so excited because they just knew nothing basically. And they're, operating off of either what they see on reality television, which of course isn't reality at all. Right. How terrifying is that? Or some other models that who have really struggled, parents who've been multiple times, and otherwise just not good models oftentimes. And one of my students, I think it was my second semester, leaped up in the back of the class and says, "Why don't they teach us this in middle school?" And my thought was, or what I said to him is, that would have been really great, wouldn't it have? And the reality is these are skills that are transferable. They're generalizable to your siblings, your parents, your children, your coworkers. These basic skills, some of the ones in there are really useful in all kinds of settings.
Well, and also they're generalizable to early dating, late dating, pre-marriage counseling. So one of the people that reviewed the book for us, who is a priest who is engaged, she did not put this in her review, but she put it in her email to us, and she just said, "This was so much better than my pre-marriage counseling. Like, I wish we had used this book in our pre-marriage counseling." And I'm trying to get the word out to ministers like this.
That would be a great tool for.
Yes. So much better than prepare and enrich. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a good tool, but this is meatier, and the questions, like you said, the discussions would be very helpful for a couple. So I think it's generalizable to a marriage of 42 years of being able to look at this and go, you know what, we're not doing that so well anymore, or we've gotten really sloppy about this, or
Well, okay. So one of the things that I was wondering about, because my relationship, I feel like we talk really openly about all sorts of things. That was not true in my marriage. So I think my question is how, because I felt very vulnerable, and it felt scary even in this partnership where I feel comfortable and safe. It felt very scary to openly talk about some of the things that the book brought up. And so do y'all have any advice for people who are wanting to open up with their partner, to how to do that in a way that feels safe?
Well, I think first of all, saying, being able to verbalize, this is really hard for me. I haven't talked about these things before, or I haven't shared these, or, I don't know how long you've been together, but, this is hard for me either based on my past, or because sometimes I don't know where we're going, or maybe it's even early. I don't know you that well, and I'm reluctant to kind of.
Well, yeah. What are the rules here? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You made me think about C.S. Lewis's, one of my very favorite quotes of C.S. Lewis's is, I can get it pretty close to verbatim. He says, "There is no safe investment. To love anything is to be vulnerable."
Mm-hmm.
The alternative is to take your heart and lock it in a casket tight where nobody can get to it. And in that casket, airless and dry, it will wither.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there you have it.
That's
I mean, that's a good, that seems like a really good spot to end on. And, I really appreciate you both being here, Doctors Amy Montanez and Rhea Merck. And we'll be sure to put the links to your blog and the latest book, but also the latest book, which is Love, a guide to
life
partnering, and Launch, a guide to adulting. We'll put links to those if you're interested in purchasing these, and I would highly recommend them. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you, Mary. Please tell Lydia we're sorry we didn't get to be with her.
I will. I know I know she's disappointed, but hopefully we'll be able to have y'all on another time.
Have us back on if there's like a specific skill that she would want to talk about or focus on, or if there's something in there that you would want to narrow in on, we could do that too.
Absolutely. Thank y'all for being here. Let's see what happens next.